Here to give my thoughts on Raw for Monday, the Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast with Triple H that air exclusively on the WWE Network for Monday as well. And I'll be reviewing tonight's episodes of Lucha Underground and NXT that aired on the WWE Network, which the NXT episode was the go home show for their special that's going to be airing next Wednesday live on the WWE Network, which is looking like some great stuff. They did a great build on tonight's episode, and it was a good show. And in my opinion, Wednesday nights is easily the best night for wrestling on television. You have Lucha Underground and NXT, the two best shows of the week, in my opinion, almost on a consistent basis. They always are. So just wanted to review those as well. But first, let me get into my thoughts on Raw. Now, I'm not going to go in depth segment by segment talking about everything that happened on Raw, but more or less just a few of the things that happened, which was, okay, going into Raw, Triple H, the Authority announced that they're going to have this, earth-shattering announcement that's going to rock the core of wrestling and it's going to shock everyone, which you really shouldn't have said that if it was just going to be pretty much something people expected them to maybe do, or that it pretty much just fell flat. And, the first 30 minutes, which this is one of the problems with having 3 hours of television, you have to pretty much drag segments out a lot, and that's what they did at the beginning. The announcement was that Roman Reigns was going to be putting his Royal Rumble spot on the line in a number one contenders match against the winner of the main event that aired on Raw, which was Seth Rollins versus Daniel Bryan, and that will be taking place at Fastlane. The winner of Rollins and Daniel Bryan versus Roman Reigns at the Fastlane pay-per-view. This is basically WWE's way to still, in my opinion, go in the same position. The people that are thinking WWE is going to change their booking decisions here as far as putting Daniel Bryan over in the number one contenders match at Fastlane's, it's not going to happen. Don't, don't go in there expecting that and then feel very disappointed when it doesn't happen, because this is basically WWE's way to placate the fans that got pissed off with the WWE booking as far as Daniel Bryan. But then Daniel Bryan is going to have probably this incredible match at Fastlane with Roman Reigns, and that's going to put him over. And they're going to go in the same direction of Roman Reigns and Lesnar at WrestleMania. I just can't see them changing their main event booking decision for WrestleMania 2 years in a row. But at the same time, 2 years in a row, they pretty much didn't give two shits about who won the Royal Rumble. So pretty much the Royal Rumble winner and whoever wins that pretty much doesn't mean shit anymore. So they didn't have any problem with that, but I don't think they're going to go in a different direction. But the other things that we saw on Raw, before I get into talking about the main event on Raw, which was really good with Rollins and Bryan, let me talk about the few other things that happened on there as well. They did really good stuff with Rusev on Raw, the stuff with Rusev and Cena. I'm really looking forward to that match at Fastlane. Obviously, that's just going to be a blow-off match, and we'll probably get a rematch for it at WrestleMania. I'm hoping they don't go in the predictable route of Cena ending the undefeated streak of Rusev, but obviously that's probably the route they will go. But one of the things now, even though it wasn't a great match on Raw, singles match or anything, but I'm glad that we're starting to see with the Usos, we're getting a fresh tag team feud. At least that's what it looks like, because they did it on SmackDown. They did it on Raw with singles matches between the Usos and Tyson Kidd and Cesaro, which that can be some great stuff. Not only will this be a fresh tag team feud for WWE, you can do 6-person matches, throw in Naomi and Natalia in there from time to time to make it not be as repetitive as like pretty much the last 2-3 months of WWE television has been for the tag team scene, where they kept on doing the same exact match of the Usos versus the Miz and Mizdow. So thankfully now we have a good fresh tag feud. I would like to see them two take on each other at WrestleMania, and just this could be a tag feud. Not only will you have better quality matches, but I think it's not going to get at these matches between them two, when they start doing them, I think will be so good that you're not going to be like, God damn, this shit's getting repetitive and we're seeing it too many times. I think it's going to be like, this is good every single time we see it. At least that's what I'm hoping for. But one of the big things on Raw was obviously the main event, the match. Whoever won the main event on Raw, Seth Rollins and Daniel Bryan would take on Roman Reigns at Fastlane. Obviously, we knew who was going to win this. Daniel Bryan was obviously the predictable outcome of this, which everyone knew that was going to happen. But Seth Rollins and Daniel Bryan had a hell of a match. This was a really, really good TV match against each other. They've had better matches with each other in the past before their WWE career, obviously, with each other. But just for a TV match and something they just pretty much threw together, it was a hell of a way, to end Raw with them. And they are definitely trying their best to put over Roman Reigns, not only with Daniel Bryan putting them over, but they're not doing, that many more cheesy promos with him. And then they did, him taking out the Big Show with a big spear at the end of Raw. So they're trying their best to overcome the bad booking of Roman Reigns that they did, where they were pretty much looking like they were trying to kill Roman Reigns in the booking wise, at least. So at least they're trying to do some things to, change that around a bit. And then after Raw on the WWE Network, we got the Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast with Triple H. This was probably as good as the Vince McMahon one. Vince McMahon one might have been a little better, but obviously when you do these podcasts, Stone Cold Steve Austin podcasts on the WWE Network, especially with people like Vince McMahon and Triple H, you already know going in expecting you're not going to get the 100% truth. You're never going to get that. And pretty much in any wrestling interview, you're never going to get 100% truth. But especially when it's, done on the WWE Network and it's Vince McMahon or Triple H, both of them are, not going to get it's not like they're getting softball questions from Stone Cold, but they're pretty much going to keep to the corporate line. They're not going to really say anything that's too controversial. That's kind of what Triple H did here. While it was a fun, entertaining interview, he didn't really say anything that was controversial. Now, there's one line he said in there that people thought was a little controversial, and I'll get to that. But I loved the way it started off with pretty much Austin and them two, Austin and Triple H talking, praising NXT. That was a lot of the, what Triple H is doing in developmental, which he's doing a great job in developmental. And, if that is actually the Triple H we would get after Vince McMahon dies, then WWE is in good hands. If, all of everything we're seeing in NXT is really Triple H is doing, which obviously it seems like, because that's Triple H's baby, NXT, and he's doing a great job down there. Some of the other stuff, which the only thing that was a little surprising that he said, because it was kind of, stepping out of the corporate line to some degree, because Vince McMahon wouldn't say it, but was him saying the whole thing about, Raw should go back to 2 hours. And I think almost every writer in WWE and all the boys in the back would think the same thing, even though in some cases some of the boys might think 3 hours is better, because then that would give them sometimes, lower level guys more of an option to be on TV. So some of them might disagree, but I think most of the boys and most of the writers will agree, and all the fans, definitely all of us fans, think that, yeah, 3 hours of Raw is too much. Go back to 2 hours. That was pretty much the only thing Triple H said that did somewhat surprise me. Obviously, the stuff he said about China within here has, some people, have taken it, over the top a little too much. What he said wasn't really anything too controversial, but I mean, I understand why some people took some negativity towards it, because I mean, if you look at some of the people that are in WWE's Hall of Fame, you don't have that many stars in the Hall of Fame that are, these, godlike creatures with no negative stuff in their past as far as drug use, or in the case of some, murder or covering up murders. You don't, and obviously you have steroid use and all that, and China being involved in pornography is not any worse than some other stuff people are in the Hall of Fame. But Triple H more or less just stuck to the corporate line that he thought having someone like China in the Hall of Fame, getting her in there, while he didn't say he said she should not be in the Hall of Fame, he did, go with the line of the, oh, my kid might find out something when she gets older, and when she types in China, and China's, pornography career pops up, and, the whole stuff, protect the kids and that shit. Pretty much Triple H just keeping safe, keeping to the corporate line right there. Wasn't really saying anything too controversial, and I wouldn't say it was necessarily sexist or, slut shaming or anything. It was just Triple H sticking to the corporate line right there. And it was a really fun interview. I would wish WWE does these Stone Cold Steve Austin podcasts at least once a month. At least do it once a month. I understand you can't get Austin to probably do it on a weekly basis. And if you do it on a weekly basis, it will not lose its appeal, but it will lose, you know, people wanting to see it more and more, because less is more. The less you do it, maybe do it once a month and have another big star next time, and do it more often. And I would love to see it. This is a great exclusive to have for the network, and obviously one of the things that get more people to possibly subscribe to the network. And obviously this month of February is free, so if anyone that unsubscribed to the WWE Network is their outrage of the booking of the Royal Rumble, I would say, subscribe back, just because, not necessarily because of the Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast, but because of the NXT special that's going to be airing on the WWE Network this upcoming, this next not this, but next Wednesday on the WWE Network. So after I gave you my thoughts on Raw and the Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast with Triple H, let me get into my thoughts on and review of tonight's episodes of Lucha Underground and NXT. I'm going to go in the order of the shows I watched first. I watched Lucha Underground on the El Rey Network first, which this is always one of my favorite shows of the whole week. I mean, even some weeks where they don't give you maybe like a match of the year quality match, or some excellent match in the main event, almost every single week you just have some of the most sound, logical booking and fun show, and you still get good wrestling every single week. And they do some good builds to stuff they do in the future. And the show kicked off on Lucha Underground on the El Rey Network with Son of Havoc out there with Evilise, and he took on Angelico. This was a really solid opener. Fun stuff, and they're building to the whole Son of Havoc and Evilise splitting up and possibly doing some type of love triangle with them too. Fun match, decent match to start the show off with. Then the next thing, which I really loved, even though this was just a squash match, I'm a huge Pentagon Jr. fan, and anytime Pentagon Jr. is out there and just is destroying a motherfucker, I find it entertaining as hell. He did that with Famous B, which is known from his stuff working for Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. He was on here against Pentagon Jr. Really short match. Pentagon Jr. Destroyed him. Then they did the whole thing at the end of the match with him locking in basically his version of the Kimura and, work-wise, breaking the arm of Famous B. I really like seeing Pentagon Jr. out there just destroying a motherfucker. That was entertaining. And then you had Drago versus Aerostar. This was just a fun luchador match. Good solid back and forth action. Really fun stuff. And then you had the main event of Johnny Mundo versus Cage. This was really, really, really good stuff. Good TV match. Looked like we were going to get some bullshit finish here, because during mid part of it, when it originally stopped, you saw King Cuerno out there. He was pretty much stalking his prey. He attacks Johnny Mundo. Obviously, this is probably him colluding with Dario Corto, the authority figure in Lucha Underground. And the match ends in disqualification. Then Dario Corto comes out there, says, we're not going to end it like this. Basically gives the fans what they want. Restarts the match. Goes for another couple minutes. And just really, really, really good stuff with Cage and Johnny Mundo. Both of them looked really good. The way they did it did not hurt either one. Cage looks dominating as a motherfucker. And just a really fun show. And then after this, after we get that really, really good match in the main event for Lucha Underground, then it cuts to backstage, Dario Corto in his office, and then you hear this voice, and you can tell who it is, obviously. And then he comes in there, and you see Alberto El Patron, Alberto Del Rio from WWE, formerly Alberto Del Rio from his WWE career, and Lucha Underground making his first TV appearance. That was a hell of a way to end it. I mean, after you get a good match, it's kind of like, I love this. I know some people don't like, the cheesy backstage segments they do, but I think it just adds to the show. And, if you're a fan of, some of the stuff they do have on the El Rey Network, like a lot of the B-rated movies, you probably are a fan of some of the backstage segments. You don't hate it as much. I know some people have a problem with the acting and all that, but everyone will admit it is a hell of a wrestling show. I wouldn't give the show, an A+ or anything. Tonight's episode, I probably would give, B minus, C plus, but it was still a fun show, even when it's not always the best wrestling on the show this week. It was, good build up to stuff, the big appearance of Berto Del Rio at the end, and just, solid, solid matches and just logical booking and really fun show. Really enjoyed it. And now on to talking about and reviewing tonight's episode of NXT on the WWE Network. This was the go-home show for NXT, building up to the NXT TakeOver Rival show that's going to be airing next Wednesday live on the WWE Network. That's headlined by Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens for the NXT title. And another match, which we found the outcome of who was going to be in the number one contenders match as well, with the number one contenders tournament ending tonight, and the main event, which had an incredible match as the main event on tonight's episode of NXT with Hideo Itami and Finn Balor. Just some great stuff in the main event. Excellent wrestling match, and definitely a match I would recommend people to go out their way to see. The show kicked off with Big Cass and Enzo Amore out there. They bring Carmella out there to the ring, and she takes on Emma, which, God, I really... It's sad seeing how the way WWE is using Emma, because she's a really good wrestler, and it just seems like, especially on the main roster, they don't have anything for her. She's just stuck down in NXT for some parts, and I guess now they're just having her used as elevating talent. That's what she did here, with pretty much trying to elevate and put over Carmella, and that's what she did in this match. Carmella got the win, and had the number one contenders matches. Winner of this, then the main event is who takes on each other next week to decide who is the number one contender. This was Adrian Neville and Baron Corbin. It was probably the best I've seen Baron Corbin look, just because obviously he's taking on Adrian Neville. Adrian Neville, every single time he goes out there, is, he's one of the most entertaining performers that WWE has in NXT, and just great seeing him every time. He picks up the win here with the Red Arrow, and they continue the whole thing with Baron Corbin and Bull Dempsey, because at one point Bull Dempsey comes out there, rams Baron Corbin into the ring post. Looks like, Neville's just going to get the count out victory. He gets back in there. Then shortly after that, Neville then hits the Red Arrow, which I don't really understand this whole thing with the Baron Corbin and Bull Dempsey feud, especially with Baron Corbin completely destroying and decimating Bull Dempsey in both his matches. First time less than a minute, the other time 2 minutes, and then next week at the NXT special, we're gonna have like this no holds barred match, and I guess that's gonna be like, those aren't Baron Corbin's rules, those are Bull Dempsey's rules, so I guess it's going to be more even then, so I guess that's the route they're going to be going. And then after this, we had really good build to the four-way NXT women's title match. Tonight's match was Bayley versus Becky Lynch. Really fun women's match. These are the type of women's matches I wish people would, I wish we would see more often on Raw. I mean, it wasn't a long women's match, but it was a solid women's match. Really enjoyed it. Bayley picks up the win here after Sasha Banks, and you see some friction between Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch in here, with Becky Lynch, outside the ring, taking Sasha, thought she was, taking forever to get back in the ring. Sasha gets her back in the ring. Then Bayley hits her finisher on her. And then after this, you hear Charlotte's music hits. She's up on the stage. She looks, like really intimidating. Everyone else staring at her, saying they're going to be the next champion. Really good build to the four-way match for the NXT Women's title here. They did a really good job of building this up. I mean, showcasing that, you can have really good women's wrestling on your show and do a really good build to it. And I just wish that the stuff we see in NXT with the women, I wish we would see that more often on the main roster in WWE. Unfortunately, we don't, because it's almost a bizarro world. Like, somehow WWE can produce some of the terrible stuff they do on the main roster, but at the same time, have some of the great stuff that happens in NXT, which, speaking of great stuff, then the main event, this was the other number one contenders match final. Whoever won this takes on the winner that won the Neville and Corbin match. Obviously, Neville won that, so Neville's in the finals. So whoever won the Hideo Itami and Finn Balor match takes on Neville next week. This was a hell of a main event. Great, great TV match. Just hell of back and forth action. You know, them beating the hell out of each other. Del Itami, he teased the go to sleep again, and I swear when he finally hits that go to sleep, that's going to be the loudest pop that you're ever going to hear in the Full Cell arena for NXT, because they're going to go nuts. I mean, they're already going nuts with him teasing, and I just can't wait to see him finally do it. And, you know, a very stiff and brutal match here. You have Finn Balor pick up the win in this, and so we'll be seeing Finn Balor and Adrian Neville next week in the number one contenders match, which that's going to be some great, great stuff. That right there, I mean, the Finn Balor and Adrian Neville match, along with, you know, the four-way match for the women's title, and obviously Owens and Zayn. I mean, those right there, all, you know, could be 4-star plus matches, and especially in the case of Neville and Balor and Owens and Zayn, those are probably two matches that could possibly be match of the year candidates, and great stuff we'll be seeing next week on the NXT TakeOver Rival special. And then after the main event, you saw this great, great, awesome video package with Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens talking about their past and everything, and it was just great build-up package. And obviously, if you didn't see the video package, if you missed the video package at the end, obviously this will be the package that'll probably air most likely before the match at the NXT TakeOver Rival special. So very fun episode of NXT tonight, like always. I would give it an A+. It was an A+ show tonight. Not only did you have a great main event that was must-see TV right there, but you had a very good show that built up to your special the next week. So really good night of wrestling tonight with Lucha Underground on the El Rey Network and NXT on the WWE Network. Two of my favorite shows of the week all the time. And as I said, I gave my thoughts on Raw and the Steve Austin podcast. And that's it for this video. All right, peace.